LinkedIn presents.
This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with individuals who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and even if you're not a fan of horse racing, for many reasons, it's nearly impossible to avoid the Kentucky Derby. Last week, over 16 million viewers tuned in to watch Mage win the first leg of the Triple Crown. Your social media feeds were probably filled with viral photos of celebrities wearing big hats and sipping mint juleps. But another moment that went viral occurred minutes before the big race when an airplane flew over Churchill Downs promoting a model's website. So, who was this model and how did she pull off the marketing stunt of the year? Let's find out. My guest this week is Steph. Steph's a model, entrepreneur, and founder and star of Golf With Me. Steph, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Good, I'm excited too. So let's get right into it, Steph. Take me back to how all of this started and how you came up with the idea for a flyover at one of the biggest sporting events in the world.
The Kentucky Derby happened because actually what really got it started was last year during the World Series, I flew a banner on Game 3, I believe, for the Phillies and Astros, and I flew it in Philadelphia, and it did really well. It got the eyes, it got the attention, and press, tweets, social media, everything that I expected, if not more. And so I was like, how can I do something like that again this year? How can I go to other events that would really get some eyes like that? And someone mentioned to me about the Kentucky Derby. I'm like, let me do some research here. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businesswoman. I need to know my numbers before ever investing into any type of marketing, advertising, anything like that. So I looked up the Kentucky Derby, and mind you, I never really paid attention to Kentucky Derby. I don't know anything
popular.
about it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have
you probably
no
know now.
idea.
Yeah.
I know now. I did want to attend it. I did not attend it, which is great about my job and my profession is that I can be from home and working as well. But I looked up the Kentucky Derby. I looked up the demographics, everything about that, made sure it fit right into what I needed, for my stats and stuff. And the Kentucky Derby brings in about 150,000 people every year. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like we need to make a move on this. And I actually did it about, I would say 2 weeks out. It was a little bit easier than doing the World Series because the World Series, you don't actually know who's going to be in the World Series based off of the games. And I believe there was a rain out on one of the games. So the game got switched over and moved. You couldn't pre-plan as much as I could with the Kentucky Derby. And there was no air restrictions. So with the baseball stadiums, major league stadiums, NFL, any of that stuff, there's air restrictions and you can only fly about like 2 hours prior to game time. There was no air restrictions for the Kentucky Derby, so that you were allowed to just fly it over and wherever, whenever, whatever time slot you could get for that particular time of day. But it did really well. And I knew that since there was no air restrictions and there was that many people going to attend, I knew I was going to get a good ROI on that.
And speaking of time, I guess the reason why this one popped more than the World Series one was the timing of the flyover. So you had no control of that? Tell me about why that moment.
So honestly, I contacted a bunch of different advertising, like aerial advertising companies, and that one in particular had that time slot available, and it was 3 to 6 p.m. And yeah, I had no control over the time. I don't know anything about the Kentucky Derby, so I don't know their schedules. I couldn't read, like, okay, I thought there was just like 10 horses throughout the day. I literally know nothing. So yeah, I just picked that time slot because it was available, and it just seemed to make the most impression out of it. So,
and for folks not familiar, when did it happen to fly near Churchill Downs?
So unfortunately, my plane was flying during the national anthem. I'm a very patriotic woman, so I don't know if I don't approve of that. But again, I didn't know that was going to be a thing. I know every major sporting event has a national anthem, obviously.
Yeah.
But again, like whenever I did the World Series, you can't fly during the game. So you can't fly during the national anthem, period. You can't fly over the stadium. You have to fly 2 hours prior and then you're cut off. Versus this, I that wasn't even a thought in my head. Like, oh, is it going to fly during the national anthem? And in fact, I spoke to some other people, and they said that there's no timing of when a race is going to be done. So it's all
Right.
based off of just when each race is done.
Hmm.
So there's no actual specific time for the national anthem anyways. Not saying that like I'm justifying the case, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
that's pretty much what happened. I picked a time 3 to 6 p.m. and I flew the plane. I had no control over the plane, the banner, any of that. And I, paid my rate and hope for the best.
The rest is history. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you crunch the numbers for the World Series flyover. What's been the ROI? We're recording this about a week afterwards. What kind of reaction are you seeing from all different levels?
I did get a lot of people that were like, "Oh yeah, genius,
Yeah.
businesswoman. This is beautiful." And some people were like, "I can't believe she would do something like this. This is crazy."
Yeah.
No matter what, I still got the traction. I still got notice and stuff like that. But as far as the ROI on that, it's really hard to say because you can't click on a link, right? You can't.
Mhm.
There's nothing that shows me, "Oh, you came from the Kentucky Derby. You came
Right.
from my banner." But I would definitely say 50% more than normal,
Okay.
which is
Cool.
great.
Yeah.
Even 10% more, 5% more,
Yeah.
anything percent more, not as long as I didn't go downhill after that, I did great.
Wow.
Especially for the price of something like that versus what I could potentially make. 'Cause if you're not constantly promoting yourself, you're not getting anything.
Yeah.
There's no traction. There's no, if I don't ever post on social media, no one would ever know who I am. So as long as I'm advertising myself and getting out there, then that's all that matters.
Cool. And I want to talk about this sort of transition from free content to paid content. I feel like content creators are sort of having that moment that traditional media had a few years ago when for years traditional media was free. If you wanted to read a news story, you click and boom, oh, there's a story free. Now all of a sudden, because of the traditional model of advertising and subscribers, these media companies need to find ways to make money. So I think New York Times was famously one of the first to put most of their stories behind a paywall. And now for years, people have been trained to get their content for free, whether it's
Hmm.
Instagram, it's now
Hmm.
TikTok, Twitter, what have you. And content creators are like, wait a minute, I got to get paid for this. And obviously, OnlyFans came in and stepped in and changed the game. So how have you seen this transition from, hey, I'm going to post a really cute shot on Instagram, which is going to make nothing for me, to now I have to have subscribers and people have to pay to get to my content? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's going to be a big transition for people in your space where you can't just go by just giving away the store for free. You've got to put everything behind a paywall.
For
So how's
sure.
that going?
Yeah, Joe, I started in a traditional modeling agency. So when I was younger, I got signed to a traditional modeling agency in Pittsburgh. I was 14 years old, and I had to rely on patiently waiting for when my next gig is going to come. And based off of my looks, based off of my nationality, based off of whatever the requirement was, it could have been, and I'm just naming this, I'm just, I don't know, a Nike ad or something.
Right.
And it was just based off of height, looks, to just like my personality. So I just had to kind of twiddle my thumbs for a little bit there, for years and years and years. And then I discovered social media and the rise of digitally based creators. It's that kind of market right now. And if you can't
Yeah.
keep up with it, then you're just going to be left in the dust. And I just feel like there's just so much more power with us. And people know that there is power with influencers and stuff. And
Mm.
you can't stick to that free, just turning on the TV and watching a show. People want what they feel relatable to, and that is what the market is now. And you have to be one step past whatever everyone else is doing. And if you can't keep up with it, you're just going to be left behind. But there's just like a lot of power because we can be artistic and creative and our own bosses.
Mm.
And some people just don't know how to take advantage of social media. And with me, I've been doing it for so long that finally, whenever OnlyFans came out, and I saw it is a paid thing. YouTube has done, paid whatever, and
Yeah.
things have changed with YouTube and stuff like that. Most of the platforms do it now, but not what OnlyFans has done for me. And I feel like I can be more raw and authentic on OnlyFans. And I could show people like, okay, here's what you get on Instagram, but like here's what else you can get on OnlyFans and pay for it. And I can actually spend more time into that.
Mm.
And I think people like that personal connection. I just feel like they enjoy it more.
That's so cool. And I want to kind of tie things together. So you talked about being a traditional model, working your way up, and I talk about this on the podcast all the time about, being a card-carrying Gen Xer. When the supermodels and models of my time growing up were famous, you would only see them in ads. So like if Claudia Schiffer had a new Guess commercial, that's how you see Claudia Schiffer. If Cindy Crawford, Pepsi ads. And now I feel like models have so many different ways to make money and have careers without you mentioning waiting for the phone to ring. Is that basically how things are now, where like the upper echelon models will still get those big campaigns with major brands, but the rest of the world, the other 99% of the people in that space, they've got to go out and become entrepreneurs and do it themselves? Is that how they become successful? Is that how you're doing it?
Absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong. Heidi Klum, if I saw her right now, I would drool all over her feet. Iconic. Those people are A-lists, household names, and we can be those too. But they're a different. Again, we I don't feel connected to them. I don't feel like that. Like like I know them,
Mm,
but we have more control and they
mm,
have less control over what they can and can't do. And I think when you start off doing what I am doing right now, you can really find your personality and find, who you truly are. And if you want to portray that, you can portray that versus them. There, it's more in a control space, and
yeah.
we can be way more creative than they can. Like we have the power versus, like they're just living day by day based off of, what their past is, whether it was fashion shows and, a Victoria's Secret ad or whatnot. They're just living off their brand name. Mine is my personality, my literally everything that I do. There's not one moment, I was just thinking about this the other day. There's not one moment where like I know how to turn off the switch
Mm,
being a creator. I wake up, I'm like, oh, I should tell my people what I'm doing right now.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have coffee. I need to let them know I'm gonna have coffee because I want them to, and they're the ones that provide me my income. I want them to know what I'm doing. I want, like, obviously there's a lot of things that I keep very extremely private. So I'm so public at the same time, I'm very private.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and it's funny that the way you describe it is. So I spent 20 years working in morning radio in New York City, and basically same thought process. Like your job's 24/7. You're always looking for content. If there's a story in your life, that story will be on the radio the next day. To the upset of many family members when you do stuff like that, but you know how it is that you're always constantly looking for content. No, even though we were on from 6 to 10, at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, I'm thinking about content for the next day. So in a way, you're sort of doing the same model of, sorry, pardon the pun. Sorry, the same model of being like a live radio host or TV host that shares their life every day, except you're doing it digitally through social media and your OnlyFans site. And one of the things that's arisen recently is the importance of diversification. So you're probably reading about this a lot lately, Steph, and it's the fact that the digital media sites that blew up in the 2000s, the BuzzFeeds of the world, the Vices of the world, they're all closing up shop because of the fact that they built their backs on the Facebook algorithm. And then one day, Mark Zuckerberg said, nah, I don't want to do it like that. And all these companies, years later, folded. They're done. So these companies, they basically were just, their bloodline was all through Facebook clicks. Facebook clicks went away, their business goes away. A year or so ago, there was some controversy about OnlyFans and people and they were changing the way they were moderating content, and then people were jumping off. Do you worry about diversifying and making sure that one day, who knows, OnlyFans may not be there? Something could happen, something unfortunate could happen, and they're forced to shut down shop. How do you handle diversification in terms of getting streams of income outside of OnlyFans?
That's a great question. I love that question. Ever since I started OnlyFans, whenever I started making a lot of money, I started taking that money and reinvesting it into properties. So I have properties right now. They're short-term rentals. I just launched one the other day, and it's in, again, I do a lot of research before I do anything, but it's in South Bend, Indiana, and the everyone's like, "Why South Bend, Indiana?" It's walking distance to Notre Dame. The housing market's very, very cheap there versus what it costs per night to rent out a house. And I make my mortgage, in one night. So yeah, I could go to Nashville and get a home and wouldn't make one night's, worth of mortgage. In fact, I probably make my mortgage in half that day that they stay there. But, so I invest in properties. I'm not too concerned if the internet shut down. I probably would get more sleep. But as far as like, like you were saying with the other companies they relied on clicks, they relied on ads, they couldn't keep up, and they didn't rely on the younger generation, and you need that creative mind to help with your companies and stuff like that. I would still be modeling. I'm my own brand. So I would take off my own brand, whether it's doing a website, whether it's, I'd find a way, like I just wouldn't fully rely. And it's, people are always like, what if OnlyFans shut down tomorrow? What if Instagram shut down tomorrow? And my response is, what if it did? What if you lost your job tomorrow? I mean, taxis, for example, like those taxi drivers had to go and be Uber drivers, like what if that did happen? I mean, I could tell that to a dentist. What if your practice got shut down? What if you're, like my friends that work 9 to 5s, what if you just lost your job tomorrow and your job, like anything could happen to anyone at any point in time, like anyone can lose their job. So the unfortunate thing about them losing their jobs is they don't think like that. They don't think that they could lose their job tomorrow, and they don't have that supply, that income that like I do. Like tomorrow I could wake up and like, okay, I want to make an extra, and I'm just naming goofy numbers here. I want to make an extra $1 million today. I know what I have to do to make that, versus someone that's just, and I have, bless your heart and souls that work 9 to 5s, but versus someone that's working 9 to 5, they don't have that choice. They don't have that, oh, I want to make an extra $1,000 today. How can I do that at work? You can't. You're living off of a salary. So I guess you just don't, you rely so much on someone else providing you an income as far as like big corporations go. And I rely on myself. I think it's a lot more work, because I have worked in an industry like that where, I've worked in retail. I've worked as a waitress. I worked, I went to school while working two full jobs. And, I've struggled through all of that nonsense and craziness. And I'm like, I have the freedom now, I have the freedom, and I'm always constantly thinking of ways to make more money. I love money. But I also, I don't pick up a business and just think I'm just going to make a crazy amount of money. I do a lot of research before going into anything. I've stayed at Airbnbs in South Bend, Indiana to see what they're like. I've, I do a lot more research than people think. I'm not just some Instagram model that just like lives off of just OnlyFans. There's like, I have a shop set up on my Instagram where I promote on my stories, and people buy it from my shop on there. There's all different kind of ways to make it. But I'm sitting here right now, and I am making money, but at the same time, it's a business, and you have to do things for free. You have to do things, people see me on my phone and Snapchatting. I'm like, well, I have to do this. Yeah, maybe I'm not getting paid to Snapchat a story, but I have to be able to connect with someone every single day, because if they see me absent for one day, then that could be a loss of income. Yeah. But if they see me every day, that's like another person, just one person telling the next person that I'm on social media, like this personality, I love her, here, check her out. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not too concerned about OnlyFans, Instagram, Facebook. I use it all. Twitter, Snapchat shutting down, because I'm like 10 steps ahead.
Awesome. That's great. And you use the word influencer, and it's funny. I think the other day there was an NPR podcast about the fact that like kids are growing up, and you're still young enough to remember this, where like the word influencer wasn't a career, but like kids are growing up now, and people ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And when I was a kid, it was like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. And children are saying they want to be influencers when they grow up. Now that you are one, is it weird that like this is like, because as a child you probably that wasn't probably your thing. You probably want to be a model or something else, actress, whatever. But like the fact that kids are growing up now with their heart set on being an influencer when they grow up, quote unquote. How do you feel about that?
I have yet to look at what kids are saying, at least younger than me, what they want to be when they're older. But I love that they know that like this is actual career and it's not being frowned upon, because whenever I first started, and I kind of avoided the word influencer because people always bashed it and thought it wasn't a real job. Like, oh, you just wake up and take a picture, you take a selfie. And it's like, there's a lot more production that goes on, behind the scenes that they don't see, and I don't provide it. Sometimes I do, I want them to know like, okay, this is actually what truly goes on behind the scenes. And it's a lot more work than you think. I mean, there's times where, for my show, for example, Golf With Me, I research the locations and where people want to go, like destinations where they kind of get FOMO because they can't get there, and I can provide them what that destination looks like. And I do a lot more research. But so yeah, I could leave on a Friday, at 6 a.m., get into town on, in the evening, and then I have to prep some shots, a shot list for the following day. Then I get up at 6 a.m. and tea times at 8 a.m. And so I'm working all weekend long, literally probably getting 2 hours of sleep a night because I'm prepping so much for the show, and we're recording and filming and uploading footage and putting it onto my computer, realizing I'm running out of room on my hard drive and I have to go get another, like it just is like a very long process. So I love that kids are saying that they look up to influencers as far as like they want that to be their career, because I hope that my future kids, I'm going to knock this a little bit because I know what I'm doing with my life, but I hope that my future kids don't say that they want to go to college, because I just feel like the ROI on that is just not there anymore. Versus when we were younger, you had to go to college. You had to go to college to get a job. And at least that's the way we were told, because they didn't know that this was going to be a thing where I am now. But you had to go to college to get a job. You had to pay 50, 60. When I went, it was $60,000 for my private college, $60,000 a year that we couldn't afford, and I'm working all these jobs just to go to school to find out that, like, wow, I could have been an influencer this entire time. I love that kids are saying that. Like, I love that this is turned into something that it's their dream job, because my dream job when I was younger, it was a model. And I was told that I couldn't do that. I had to pick a real job, and maybe I could, do that as a hobby or whatever. And now I can be my own brand. I am my own brand, and anyone, if someone said to me, I want to be an actor, I'm like, okay, be one. Yeah. Like, you can be one. Pick up your phone, record yourself, put it on the internet. You don't need to actually be in a movie to be an actor. Oh, I want to be a host of my own show. Okay, be one. Get a podcast. Go on YouTube. Go on TikTok. You can be a host of your own show. You can literally be anything now with the power of your phones, social media, everything.
That's awesome. And let's talk about some of your entrepreneurial ventures. You're the queen of real estate in South Bend, Indiana. You've got Golf with Me, but talk about being an entrepreneur, because basically you're the CEO of your own company. What's that like?
I am very blessed. I've worked very, very hard to get to this point in my life of being an entrepreneur. And again, modeling was my dream job. Being an entrepreneur where I am, I've had vision boards that I didn't even realize were vision boards at the time, that I would draw about being where I am and wanting to be an entrepreneur. It's not a 9 to 5; it's a 24/7. And I wake up thinking business. I wake up going to sleep thinking business. I'm, eating lunch thinking business. I think of literally everything. But I have the freedom to be as busy as I want or be as lazy as I want. But I don't think I don't even use the term lazy in my vocabulary anymore. But literally every day is the entrepreneur life. But I mean, again, like, so I'm checking emails. I have a whole team of people, I'm not a one man team, yeah. I have a whole team of people, and they're my dream team. I hope I never lose them. I have them for life, but they're my dream team. And I'm very proud of everything I've accomplished so far.
Awesome. What kind of so you got the media, digital media with Golf with Me, real estate. What other verticals are you interested in actively now or hope to be?
I hope that with Golf with Me, I can possibly, maybe like an umbrella effect of having different shows and other creators wanting different shows under me. Or, like eventually I want them to show like how to do it, or maybe have a network, a different network, make it a lot bigger than what it seems. It is big, but I want more power behind it. I love my show so far, and I put so much dedication into it that I want to see it grow and grow and grow. And I want it to be just like, oh, Golf with Me is on. I want everyone to just almost like normalize it, like a reality show. Awesome. It is a reality show, but yeah.
And you kind of jumped into it earlier, but for folks not familiar, how can they access Golf with Me, and how did it come about?
So Golf with Me, you can find it on of.tv, and then /Golf with Me. It's free. You don't have to subscribe to any of it. but it came about because a few years ago, my mother, she lives in South Korea, and golf is huge. I don't know if you play golf, Joe, but
No,
golf,
no, I'm not.
golf,
No, I'm not a
once
golfer.
you start, you can't stop,
Yeah,
Golf, I am sure you know like golfers and they're like just obsessed,
yeah,
you never have met a golfer that's not obsessed with, golf.
yeah.
But yeah, my mom lives in Korea and golf is huge in Korea. Huge, huge. You could be driving on the highway and you see nets everywhere. And it's just because it's just golf everything. They actually, a lot of the jobs like will actually tell their employees that they have to go to outings after they're done with work. It's like part of like kind of like meetings in a way, but like for some reason they go on these outings every day. So my mom got really good at golf in a short amount of time, and she would always discuss golf with me. And I just felt like there was a disconnect, and I just never wanted to talk about golf. I'm like, this is just like this is getting nowhere. We never have conversations about anything else but golf. So I realized that OF TV was doing a series with different shows, and I was like, how can I create a show where it's relatable, but and again, I love sports too. I don't know if you caught that vibe from me,
Yeah, I
but
got
I
that.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sports.
yeah.
So how can I integrate sports and my personality and a show all in one? And I knew golf was taking off in like during the pandemic time, like 2020, and it was just blowing up. But I also wanted to show that women can get into sports as well. So I was a beginner. I took lessons. So I knew the etiquettes, I knew terminology, at least a semi good swing,
Yeah.
and I invested in clubs. I really, really prepped for the show. And then I started doing research on locations and so many different things. There was so many things involved in that. So when I really started it, people were like, "Wow, this girl loves sports. She's a model and she golfs. Like, it can't get any better than this." So it really fit that demographic as well, but then it expanded. It flourished because now women can see, like, okay, wow, she's a beginner golfer and she's doing this, and it's not as intimidating as it seems. So I get a lot of people that like really respect that I'm putting out. If I tee off at a hole and I miss it and I still put that online, I'm still putting that out there, but I'm also showing like, okay, this is an amazing time and you can build connections, and golf as well is a big business interaction. So there's a lot of business that happens on the golf course. And I tell that to people all the time. They're like, really? What? There is. And you spend 4 or 5 hours with somebody that you could potentially do business with in the future, or you meet new business people on the golf course as well. So I'm always talking to someone, even when we're filming, I'm talking to people at the next hole behind us. And yeah, it was a whole domino effect of different things that led me to golf with me. But I'm
Wow.
excited to really show people my personality. They can see that. They can see like if I'm talking shit, about somebody else at a different hole or my partner or whatnot. But I interview each episode. I interview a different guest. I have a guest on that, whether they're a great golfer, an ex-athlete, an entrepreneur, an actor, whatever. I have them on the show, and if they're interested in being on the show, they're obviously interested in a little bit in golf.
Yeah.
I let them pick the location. I'll go to their city, let them pick the location, and usually I'm like, okay, I recommend picking the best golf course in your city because you're not going to have an opportunity like this, again. You might, but most likely not. So they pick the best golf course in their city, and we go to that. We film. We spend a whole day together, and we pick the best of the best and the worst of the worst, and put it in a show. And yeah, it turns out it's great so far. But now I'm having a lot more athletes contact me wanting to be on my show because I think they are enjoying the fact that I'm a female golfing and I actually can golf, and they're like, well, I'm you might as well just film me while I'm golfing, But so that makes me feel really good that like these iconic athletes are wanting to golf with me as well.
That's sweet. And just out of curiosity, what does your mother think of you now that you've taken to golf? Because I'm sure over the years she's probably like telling you should try, and now all of a sudden you're all in, even with like a show about it, and like it's part of your life. Is she proud of you?
Yeah. So she hasn't been here in a few years, only because like of restrictions and all of that. So I'm still trying to get her to come over and golf with me. I'm going to have her on one of the episodes. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a very sentimental episode for sure, because that was the whole purpose of all of this. And it's what's kind of taking me off, picked up with like, my income and my net worth was, golf with me and stuff. But she's very, very proud. And I know she brags to her friends. I don't know if you know this, but like Koreans, there's this stigma, with Korean parents, they judge you so hard. A lot of them like want you to be doctors and lawyers. And, but I think because golf is such a popular sport in Korea and so like praised on that she is super excited. She's always been super supportive and excited compared to most of my other Korean friends' parents that they're like, oh, you have to be, like I said, a doctor or a lawyer. So she's always been supportive pre-golf. She's always like posted me with my modeling, anything. But I think she's going to be able to have a little more constructive criticism for me, which I don't mind, like I'll take it from her, especially since she golfs pretty much every single day.
Wow.
But she's very proud. I know she sends her colleagues all the videos that I do. And she's like, oh my gosh, my friend said that you have a great swing for only golfing. And I don't know if you know this, but I've only been golfing for 7 months. So I do get a lot of compliments about that. And she brags. She brags.
Wow. That's great. That's awesome. Super random side note. I just finished watching Beef, and you mentioned Korean Parents, the show on Netflix. Have you had a chance to see it yet? What have you heard about it?
Everyone keeps asking me if I've watched Beef, and I have yet to watch it. But apparently it's like there's Koreans in it, right? It's
literally all Koreans. It's
all Koreans. Okay, I need to watch this.
And I wasn't bringing it up because you're Korean, but you talk about Korean parenting, and it's all about Koreans living in America, how trying to live up their dreams and the struggles with it. And it's probably one of the best TV shows I've seen since like The Bear. Like it's a fantastic show, and you should definitely watch it. Not even just the Korean angle. I mean, it's a great show. But yeah, so make sure you put that on the queue. Although it doesn't seem like you got a lot of time to be Netflix and chilling.
I find time, whether it's on a flight or something, I'll find it.
All right, make sure you do that. And last question for me, Steph, is you mentioned your vision board. What's left on that vision board for Steph Me to conquer?
What's left? Joe, when I reach a goal, it gets wiped out and another goal gets put back on, or put on in general. I have a lot on my vision board. They're actually already in queue. They're in process of actually being completed. There's some things that I want to do this summer that are going to be done. And I was like, oh, I already accomplished that. There's other little baby things that seem minor to other people, but for me, it's going to be a bigger accomplishment. I do want to be like fluent in Korean, for example. I speak Konglish, we call it, Korean and English mixed together.
Yeah.
So that's like a goal. That's a big goal of mine and a minor thing to someone else. I don't want to wear brands. I want to be the brand. So I want to be this big, giant brand, and it could happen in 2 months. With the power of social media, it could literally happen overnight. I'm super confident about everything that I'm doing. So it would definitely be for a lot more people to know who I am within a few months.
Cool. Well, I don't think there's any way you're going to get a chance to watch any Netflix shows. Forget it. In 3 years from now, I'm going to run into you like, oh, have you ever seen Beef? I'm like, no, I never got a chance to see it. But
I'm going to make some time for it. I like it, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a blast talking to you. I can't wait to see what you do next. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and that'll do it for another episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show. That way you'll receive new episodes as soon as they're available. And if you have a spare moment, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review, which would help other exceptional entrepreneurs like you discover the show. You can always connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.